Here we go. Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. We're back for another week. I'm super excited about my next guest. I love a bit of Australian representation. I feel like I don't have that much on the show, so it's always nice. Although you are in LA right now, it's the one and only Takara. You'll know her through her singles, Australian Statistics, Silly, Sin, as well, just to name a few. You've had quite a few come out this year already. It's been a busy year, and I think you've got an album coming out as well, Moondust. So that's really exciting. But yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. You started, I think it was in Adelaide, and then you went to the US. You were in Chicago. Now you're in LA, and I'm like, oh, that's a journey.
Yeah.
Just in general, let alone in music. But it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Just someone caring about me.
Well,
But
uh, let me ask you, because it must be weird a little bit in music, because like the adoration you get is directly tied to your success to make music. It's like a conditional love in a weird way. It's like, oh, you only get my love if I like what you do, as opposed to like the other stuff. And I've always wondered this as like someone who's creative and you're putting yourself out there. How do you rectify those things of like, it really is like I have to put out the best version of myself and connect with people to make sure they stick around.
yeah, I mean, I was having a bit of an experience of that last week, a little bit of maybe disassociation where obviously I have the version of me that people's really looking at, I guess, or that's just how I feel. And then there's the me in real life as well, where I just like walk around the park every day and I'm doing all the behind the scenes stuff that I feel like most musicians honestly don't get a lot of credit for. People think we're just like sitting around writing songs, just having a good time, making a bunch of money, which I would love that. But yeah, it's definitely as well for me. I think having the music as well, that's not really what took off for me first. It was more the little coffee videos I make and kind of just my online persona as a barista. So now it's about trying to convert those people who were already watching me for that into actual music listeners and fans. And as much as, I know I have to put out good music for people to want to listen, I also love to share the behind the scenes of like the real, like what's actually happening. Because I feel like just more connected to people when I see that from them. So I think that's what makes me a fan of artists more now as we're all sharing our lives on the internet. So yeah, I try to put out the real me as well, but also make sure the music's like tip top.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is it difficult to have boundaries because you're putting out the music and the artist version, and then you're putting out more of the real you, and it's like, I don't know, this is something that I see a lot is, I think 20 years ago you would just have the artist version of you, and then you would live your life kind of as much as
Yeah.
normally as you could, whereas now it's like I have to put the music version, I have to put the real version, I have to put the TikTok version, whatever it might be, out, and I'm like, oh, it's like taking over everyone's life. Like it must
Yeah.
be your whole life. Like I think,
It
as you
literally
said,
is. It is. It can be hard as well. I kind of am jealous of people back in the olden days and the 2000s when they could just put out music and then go live their lives. Obviously, like the paparazzi changed that to a point for certain people. But yeah, I would love if I could just put out music and then go back to living my daily life. But now there's kind of not really a separation between who I am as a person and who I am as an artist. So it's kind of a give and take, kind of a game of chicken of just remembering who the real me is and obviously sharing that, but understanding that at the end of the day, I am an artist and people, they might like my personality, they might not like my personality, they might like my music, they might not like my music, but it's all intertwined. And yeah, it can be a lot, definitely. It definitely helps to have friends that will pull you back into reality and be like, it's okay, you can hop off the internet for a day, it's gonna be okay.
yeah. Well,
But
let's be honest. What's not to like? You got the personality, the fun. It all makes sense. But
You'd be
you were
surprised.
saying,
Just kidding. Just kidding.
but you were saying you wish you could have like the day off, right? Let me
Yeah.
ask you. Let's jump into fantasy land. What's your perfect day? What's your like? Yeah, if you no pressure, all the worries are
Yeah.
gone, all the anxiety, like for all of that disappears. It's all taken care of. What would your like perfect day look like?
I just love being outside with my dog. Like a little bit of sunshine goes so far. I would just disconnect from the internet, put my phone down, maybe not even take it with me and just go on a massive hike, maybe find a waterfall somewhere, take some friends with me and just, yeah, not really worry about what's going on in the world or how many views my reel has gotten or how many people have listened today. So, yeah, just disconnecting, I think, would be my dream day.
Sounds like a good day.
Mm.
Yeah, that
You are
does
far
sound like.
between those. Now it's like, what are they saying? Do they like
Yeah,
it? Do they like what I just posted? But yeah, definitely have to disconnect myself sometimes manually because it can be a lot with your phone going off all day. I feel like we all kind of experience that now, regardless of whether we're artists or just a person going to work. I mean, I guess I work, but
well, how do you manage that though? Because like, unlike most other careers, it's not directly tied. Like, I wouldn't have in a corporate career typically people messaging me on Instagram going, "Hey, I fucked with that speech you gave to your corporate customer." Like that doesn't really happen in that realm, but you would have feedback constantly. Like you put out a
right.
video, you get feedback constantly. So like how do you manage that and not tie your self-esteem and tie like who you are as a person to what people are saying or random people are saying about you and whether it's good or bad?
That's such a loaded question. I feel like definitely staying out of the comments section helps a lot. There's so much positive feedback, but it also gets to a certain point where it's just negative, where someone just wants to say something to get a reaction. I've learned not to react. I accept the good and I ignore the bad. Yeah, it's definitely hard on my mental health. I will say I'm not gonna skirt around that. I'm not happy all the time, but just learning to kind of separate myself and be like, at the end of the day, I make music because I enjoy making music. It's a hobby of mine. People are going to have their opinions regardless, but at the end of the day, everyone's kind of just focusing on themselves. So don't take it too harshly, don't take it too personally. And yeah, just put your phone down at a certain point. It's okay. And block a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I,
not
I
everyone has to have access to you, is what I've learned. You don't have to let everyone have access to you.
was that a challenge you faced earlier in your career?
I think, I mean, starting out, I was always waiting for someone to be like, you can do this, or to like give me permission, which I think is why it also took me so long. I wasn't really seeing myself kind of represented. I grew up on X Factor and Australian Idol. Like, we didn't have TikTok. We didn't really have like YouTube where you could just go watch an artist interview. Like, if you didn't hear it on the radio, you're probably not going to hear it. So after a certain point, I kind of realized that I wasn't going to get that validation from anyone else besides myself. And it was a long journey of kind of learning how to validate myself and be confident in myself. And it definitely came from kind words of friends as well. But yeah, just remembering that at the end of the day, no one else is going to do this for me. Like, I have to do this for myself. So yeah, a lot of internalized validation was
Yeah.
necessary, but it took me a long time to get the validation I needed from myself as well. So yeah,
Why do you think
here I
that
am.
is? Why do you think that is? Why do you think it took you so long to give yourself what you needed? Like, isn't is I find that fascinating because I think you're not the only one. I think all of us
Yeah,
seek validation externally, and then we realize at some point that, like, hey, what I actually want is to love myself a bit more. And I
yeah.
think the vehicle of that is the validation of others. But yeah, I
Well,
find that
yeah.
fascinating.
I mean, yeah, just growing up in Adelaide, where the representation wasn't really there, I didn't really see too many people who looked like me who were doing music, unless it was like that girl, I think her name was Jamila, on Australian Idol, getting berated by Mark Holden for wearing a gold dress on her beautiful body that just, she was black, she had a black body. So it was a lot of like negative kind of, I guess, things that I saw when I was growing up, and I didn't really have any like positive reinforcement in that way. So I think it took so long. Like I would audition for X Factor and stuff every
Oh,
year.
really?
As soon as I turned 16, I was like, this is how I'm gonna make it. Like someone's gonna discover me. And every, I guess you'd call it an audition that I went to, it was just like, you don't have the right look. So as a 16-year-old, no one's like giving you specifics on what that look is. But then when you see who's successful, like Delta Goodrem at the time, and we have Kylie Minogue and stuff as well. I think Guy Sebastian was honestly the first person I saw that looked like me. And he won. And I was like, oh, okay, like maybe this might be possible. But I also think growing up, you don't really get a lot of people, and maybe it's just back then, I'm sure it might be different now. You don't get a lot of people being like, oh, you can do this yourself. Like, you should just go for it. It was always like, just be careful. It's not realistic. You need to get a real job. You need to go to college, which I did. But yeah, it just wasn't for me. I always felt this pull back towards music, but it was always such a battle inside of my head of this isn't realistic. Like, I'm not going to make any money doing this. Like, how do people even do this? When you grow up on the Disney Channel and you see these kids making it by like 17, even if they came from wherever, dad's a country star, wherever. Yeah, I kind of got to the point where I was like, if I don't make it by 18, I'm gonna age out of this business. So yeah, I just feel like it just took a long time for me to just be like, all right, I have to just like go for this, like if I really want it. But it was a long time of bouncing around from job to job, just kind of like knowing what I wanted to do, but then knowing it wasn't necessarily realistic. So I was just working day jobs, and I was, just doing what I could, recording covers in my ex-boyfriend's closet with his roommate's microphone, like putting stuff up on SoundCloud that will never see the light of day again. But yeah, I also think when I look back on it, I was always kind of just like drawn to music. Like I was always in school choir. I was in the Australian Girls Choir. I would force my schools to let me sing the national anthem all the time, or like let me like do a little dance at the assembly. But yeah, so I was always just drawn to it. It was just a matter of, I guess, deciding to go for it and not listening to what other people like had to say, because they hadn't tried it before. So how would they know that it's not possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
Did that answer the question?
you did. You did. I mean, it is weird because I think everyone's gone through it where they're like, I'm too old. But
Yeah, yeah.
but this is
I
the
still
year.
feel that way sometimes, but I've realized that like people now who are older than me, they still don't, no one knows what they're doing. Like we're all just guessing. So you might as well guess the best for you.
Honestly, it's the era of the older artist. Like,
Yeah, I believe
name
it.
any of the top artists, and they're all 30 plus.
Yeah. I mean, I also think that people have to do stuff in their own time. I feel like just the way I was feeling, just bouncing around Australia and then bouncing around America, I don't think that I was mentally prepared, and I don't think that I was strong enough, I guess, to kind of just take that plunge. So I feel like if I had especially with how overwhelmed I am with all the stuff that I'm doing now, if I tried to do this at 20 years old, like I would crash and burn. Like, I would not be able to hang in there. I don't think I needed that time, that extra time to just like figure out who I was first
Do you think you would have
and what I
stopped
had to say.
if you had the
Um,
pressures that you have now at
I
20?
think that's a good question. I don't think I would have stopped. I think I would have taken a break for a while. I think I would have been upset that I was taking a break because I don't know, I just feel like I still had that thing about age. Like if I didn't make it by, it was 17 and then it was 20 and then it was 25. Um, it was kind of becoming a bit discouraging. But then I think as I got older, I kind of just released all that pressure that I put on myself every time I hit one of those milestones. And I'd be like 25 and I'm like, no, I still want to do this. Like, so I'm just gonna do it. And at the end of the day, this is a hobby for me, even though everyone's expected to commodify hobbies these days. Like I was always making music. I would still be making music if it wasn't a career. So I might as well just put it out there and go for it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's almost more fun as a hobby,
It
not as
is.
a career. Like,
I feel like there's like less pressure. I also feel like that's why a lot of people maybe don't succeed in this is because they're doing it to make money. They're not doing it mainly, well, maybe they do love it, but they're not doing it because at the base, like they're obsessed with music. Like I feel like I'm obsessed with music, whether it's listening to someone else's, whether it's just me singing my little songs to my dog around my house, like just always, it's just what I want to do.
yeah,
So
I but I also think their relationship with what they're creating changes. Like,
yeah,
it's
definitely.
impossible to stay away from, oh, how many views did this song get, or how many
Yeah.
listens, or like, and then that all of a sudden has changed your genuine love and your hobby to like, let me see if I can create, to like, let me create. What are people saying? Let me
It's
create.
so
What are
funny,
people
kind of
saying?
like the journey that I've been on. Like when I first decided to go for it and started making music, I was like, all right, well, like what's everybody listening to? Because I need to make that kind of music because that's what people want to hear. And so I was making really like dance music at the start because, you know, like, it's Australia, EDM is everywhere, but it didn't like fill the void that I felt like I was trying to fill, I guess, and it didn't feel natural to me. So it also didn't really just get any of those numbers, my first EP. And that was a little discouraging. But then when I eventually started writing what I was actually feeling, and I worried less about like what I thought people wanted to hear and cared more about what do I want to hear? What do I have to say? I think then people started connecting with it a bit more, and I did see a little bump. But you know, as numbers come, they also go. So I think just having that like low to high to low again to high again kind of helped me realize that nothing is linear. It's going to be ups and downs, and it takes the downs to appreciate the ups. I know that's like so cliche, but yeah, it took me a lot of those downs to be like, oh, these ups feel good, but I know it's going to go down again. I'm currently in, I feel like, a bit of one of those ebbs, but I feel like the flow is coming back again, especially with this album and stuff. So yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
excited. I'm always excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you're like, you feel like you're in a flow, but you've released so many songs, you've got an album
Mm,
coming, you've got a show coming, and from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, how could you feel that way? Because,
yeah,
and it's like the amount of people, and this is what I always find strange, is the amount of people that would trade places to be in
yeah.
your position is so quick. Like that, I don't know. It's always so weird that like we play these tricks on ourselves to be like,
Someone mentioned that to me the other day, and they were like, I can't remember why I was sad, but I was sad about something. And I was like, maybe my growth wasn't as fast as I thought it should be, or a song didn't do as well as I thought it. Actually, I didn't get on like playlists that I really wanted to get on. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm horrible at this. Like I should just quit. And then one of my good friends was like, the amount of people that are working so hard just to get where you've gotten yourself is like insane. So it kind of made me appreciate a bit more just the journey that I've been on and how far I have come. Because I notice I'm always looking forward and I don't appreciate what's behind me. So I'm starting to appreciate where I came from instead of just, you know, where I am and how it's not exactly where I want to be. But yeah, that's what the journey is. We'll get there.
yeah, I think I'm similar in that sense.
Mm,
Like I struggle to appreciate even the moment sometimes. I'm like, I'm very good at planning and like
yeah,
what's next. And I feel like even subconsciously I'm planning like my day, my week, and so that just obviously flows into the rest of your life in a weird way.
yeah,
But it has taken me a while to realize that, like you said, the journey is the fun part.
right.
Like they all say that, like the period you're in, you'll never be in again.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I
and
also am trying to appreciate that no one knows who I am just yet. So I'm like, I could still have a bit of fun and like figure some stuff out. I feel like it gets a lot harder when people start to know who you are. And then you have just like a whole new audience that you have to impress and new numbers that you have to deal with. So yeah.
But once you get fame, you can't take it back.
I know. I'm like kind of scared about that. I'm like,
Yeah.
what if I actually don't like it and like all the fame and whatever? What if I do just want to write my little songs and sing into the void?
But what would you do if you didn't like it?
If I didn't like the fame,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would still like the music. It depends on what kind of fame, though, because obviously I live in Los Angeles and you see like paparazzi all the time. When I worked in the cafe and you see people come in and like Jack Black would come in and people rush to him because they love him, which I totally understand. But I'm like, how does he feel? Like, is he okay with this? Is he just trying to go about his day? So I don't know. I think I would just put my phone down. I don't know. Can you do that? I don't know. So I
Yeah.
need to ask Dua Lipa how she does it.
She can let us know on the show. So Dua Lipa,
I know,
feel
right?
free to
She can let me
to
know when she does a feature.
uh that yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, I don't know. I because I've been thinking about this and that no matter like if you're in your industry or like film or doing podcasts, there is a point where the goal at some point is to be so well known that
Yeah,
you ultimately are recognized. And then I can't help but think about like, is that what I really want? Like, do I want to be recognized every day on the street? Do I want to not be able to go on dates with my girlfriend and be
I really can't go
accosted?
on dates.
Well, it's like it's that thing of like, do I the things that I like about my life, going to brunch with my family, do I want like brunch to be disrupted
Mm,
by fans? And so it's not just a me thing, it's like everybody I know is constantly disrupted. And so like
yeah,
those things I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing. And I don't know. It's weird because my ego is like, that would be great. But
I
I think
know.
the
It's the
realist
ego.
in me is also like, that would be so annoying because I do like going under the radar. I hate bumping into people I know half the
Right,
time,
same.
let alone people who I don't know and having those conversations. So yeah, it's a weird
I feel
thing to
like in
grapple with.
Yeah, I feel like the small amount of times I've actually thought about it is just like for me, it's a bit of a sacrifice. Like I've sacrificed kind of my social life every time I'm writing a project. But I feel like music has always been a vessel to get me to a point where I can help other people. Because, when you come from poverty and you have nothing, you obviously want to get to a certain point and like the money or whatever, even though music does you don't really make that much money actually making music. It's
Yeah.
all from other stuff. But that was always just like, if I get to this point, then I'll have a platform where people will be listening to what I have to say, and maybe I could help some more people, or even just like give advice and stuff as well. But I feel like the concept of potentially being famous is a necessary risk that you have to take if you want to get to the next point. And I think the next point for me after music is definitely helping other people, like philanthropy and stuff like that as well. But you can't do much when you come from poverty. So dig our
Yeah.
way out of that hole.
Yeah. It's a tough road.
Mm.
Um, but I've realized that it happens over generations. That
Yeah,
like
definitely.
you very directly like can only see the view that your parents helped you see in a weird
Right.
way. Like and you will help your next generations as like they will see the view that you help them. It's like you plant a tree. You'll never see the
Yeah.
shade, but your children will, or the next generation will. So there's definitely a part of that of like, hey, I'm gonna do the best that I can to get where I can to then help the people that I can never experience what I experienced having to
Yeah.
get to where I want to.
I feel like I realized that with my dad, and I've only realized it kind of recently, and my mum as well. But my dad is from America. He grew up in Mobile, Alabama. He joined the Air Force really young because he was, trying to get out of poverty and stuff. And I feel like if he hadn't have done that and gone through his journey, which is definitely way, way harder than anything I've had to do in my life or experienced in my life, if he hadn't have done that, then I would still be stuck in that cycle. But he just got me that one step ahead where I didn't grow up in like the ghetto. I didn't grow up in like government housing and stuff like that. It was still definitely hard, but I feel like seeing the point that my dad got himself to, and then also seeing the points where other people maybe haven't gotten themselves to because they didn't join the Air Force, they didn't get to see the world, and like their world didn't open up for them. I'm very appreciative that he did that for himself so that I could have these experiences that I'm having. Because I would not be Australian if my, well, maybe I would. How does that work? If my dad didn't join the Air Force and like meet my mum in Australia, like who would I be, you know?
Yeah.
But
Oh, that is a
it also
really
just
weird
makes
thought.
me appreciate like the sacrifices that our parents went through just to try and give us better lives. So yeah.
Yeah. And in a weird way, you're making the same version, like you're making your own sacrifices.
Yeah. Definitely
Like,
not
yeah.
as much of a sacrifice,
No, it's not.
but
But it's like, but yeah, there is always a part of you that is like, I'm like, as you said, there is a price to pay for all
yeah,
these things. Like none of it is free. Like you do have to say no to seeing friends. You do have to say no to living a life of quiet anonymity. You do have to
yeah,
say no to potentially having like your own mental space not be invaded all the time. So there is always a price. It's just the question of what price does everyone want to pay
yeah.
for the thing that they want to do.
And at what point does it get too pricey? You know
Mm,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
But I haven't found
You
that
haven't
limit
found
yet.
that?
So
Yeah. Hopefully
not
you don't find
yet.
it.
Yeah, we'll see.
The music industry is weird though. Like,
Hmm.
especially at the moment. I don't know. I don't know about how you feel about the music industry. I mean, I've been speaking to musicians a lot, so like over time, I've like, I think the best analogy that I've ever had for what I do, because I obviously don't make my own music, is like I have always seen this house from like the street. And so, and now I've been able to look more through the window and I can kind of see more just because I'm talking to people. They share more about what they're seeing and what they're going through. And so, as I see more into the window, I also see that the painting that I thought was as beautiful as it is isn't as beautiful. Or like I'm seeing more reality than I necessarily did as just a fan. And so that's weird to me is like, oh, my evolution and relationship with music is also changing purely because I'm speaking to artists more than I ever thought
Yeah.
or imagined that I could.
It's funny for me, I feel like I always, you know, I've always been a fan of musicians and stuff as well. And you always try and, you know, go to their Wikipedia and see where did this person come from and like how did they get to where they're going. But there's so much you don't see that's not just the highlight reel. There's people in like my neighborhood in Los Angeles, and you just see them like cruising down the street. You just see like Mac DeMarco walking down the street. And he's just a regular guy, but he's on such a pedestal because his music is so brilliant that you don't really get to see, yeah, inside of that house that you're talking about. And I'm always like, just every time I meet an artist, whether it's an independent artist, whether it's someone on a label, like I just love to have the conversation of like, oh, like, how are you? Like, and then people usually open up and they'll tell you like the truth just because you've asked them. So it's nice to hear the reality of people's lives, of the music industry that most of us are struggling, especially after COVID. This, I guess, business is not meant for everybody to make money, or at least like that's the way it's set up right now, given like labels and stuff. And it's so hard being an independent artist and just getting yourself to a point where you do start making money, which is still usually not from music. It's from like sponsors or all this other stuff. So I always just love to ask the question, like, oh, like, how did you do this? Because it's always different for everybody. And I could tell you 5 dot points of how I got here, but those might not be dot points that work for you. So like, yeah, I've had to definitely opened up my perspective of people's kind of like success, and that Instagram, the highlight reel is not real, no pun intended. But yeah, just getting to know people, I feel like my whole perspective on the music industry has changed. But that's also what made this feel more possible because I knew that people had their own stories. There's no one way to do this. You just have to figure out what works for you. And yeah, people go through stuff. So everyone's dealing with something. I'm dealing with shit right now. But yeah.
What are you dealing with?
Ah, I don't need to talk about it. Just breakups, makeups, heartache,
Yeah.
drama.
All of the above.
All of the above, while also trying to organize a whole live show by myself and an album and all this other stuff as well. So it's like you always have your personal life on top of your professional life, your professional life on top of your personal life. But yeah, it's always human beings. We're going to go through stuff and we have to figure out how to get through that while we try to put music out to the world. But I mean, songwriting definitely helps me. It's like very therapeutic to be able to get the way I'm feeling out there because I'm not just going to sit down and try and trauma bond with every person that comes up and says hello. I would if I could, but it's kind of weird.
Well, the weird thing is, I've always thought is like that you will get to a point where people are coming up to you and be like, "Your song saved me," and you'll be like at your coffee shop just having coffee, and it's like, and it's a privilege to have people say that to you, and also, I think sometimes you're unprepared for those things
Yeah,
because you're like,
definitely.
"Oh, I'm just in my own world and wondering about something else," and then someone's like says that, and you're like, "I want to give you what you wanted to hear from this, but I also don't know how I should respond to something like that."
Definitely. I feel like my songs always kind of come from a place of trauma that I'm trying to express in, I guess, a fun little way. So when someone else comes up to you and is like, this song saved me from this situation, I'd love hearing about that. It's hard to know how to comfort someone because the song has obviously comforted them, but I don't really know them, but I love hearing about their story and it's quite sad sometimes because I'm like, I'm so sorry that you went through that. It can be upsetting, especially when you're just like, going about your day. But I really appreciate those moments at the same time. There's a lot of people in like my DMs and stuff who were just like, this song helped me get through divorce. And I know I've never been married, but I can just feel their pain. So you're kind of also like, I don't know the word, like a washboard for other people's trauma as well at the same time. And I'm glad I can comfort anyone in any kind of way. So I appreciate it. I appreciate hearing it. But yeah, it is a little bit jarring. And especially I've had people break down to me in public
Really?
before. Yeah, I had this girl break down to me and I just wanted to like hug her and we hugged, we cried it out, but I'm like, then you like go on about your day and I'm like, will I ever see you again? Like, are you okay? But no, I do love it. I like hearing people sing my songs back to me and watching them cry while they sing them. It's like I don't think I'll ever be able to get over that. That's such an experience that it made me love live performance because yeah, I just like to see how something I felt can be felt by everybody. So yeah.
Oh, I've just imagined me in that scenario. I do not know how I would handle that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, I accosted Leslie Mann in a bathroom one time because it was George of the Jungle. It was like my favorite movie that I've seen her in. And I was like, oh my God, I loved you in that movie. Like that movie made me realize that like you can do whatever you want to do. And she's just like, uh-huh, okay. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna cringe over that for the rest of my life. She probably doesn't even remember who I am.
Well, that you'll remember it, and that's I think all that
Unfortunately.
matters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it could be so much worse. Let's be
It could
honest.
be. It
Yeah.
could be way worse.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. I think yeah, it's weird. Everyone's like, "Oh, this is." I wish I had that favorite moment and that
Mm.
like idealistic, but it's hard to get celebrities in that like mindset.
Yeah. I also think I'm sure it's hard for someone who is super successful. Like you never know someone's like intentions. So I think everyone always has like a bit of a wall up. But I love when people can get me to let my walls down and just make me as comfortable as they feel talking to me. So yeah, I appreciate it. I love it.
Well, now you're gonna have more fans coming up to you. I think.
Oh
I
God,
think.
I
I
shouldn't have said
think. I think
that.
once you invite it and
What
you're
have I
like,
done?
"Yeah, come to me." Well, the thing would be make sure you listen to her album first, and then you can tell her how
She
good it
listen,
is.
go
Yeah.
like, subscribe, comment. No, I do love it though. In the right situation. Like if you see me crying in a park, probably don't come up to me. But if I'm
How often
just,
do you cry in
chilling,
parks?
I literally cried in a park yesterday.
Oh,
Anyways,
that
we
is
don't need to
so
talk about
sad.
it. Oh, thank you.
No, as in sad as in I'm just picturing the image of you crying like in a park. I just as an outside perspective, like I'm sure for you it was quite cathartic and you released
It really
whatever
was.
you were holding in. But from the outside perspective, I'm like, oh, I just would want to give you a hug and see if you are okay.
Oh, I think that's what all the people sitting around me were probably wondering as well. Like, is she okay? But nah, it's all right. It's just nice to let it out sometimes. So, yeah. Relationships.
Yeah. Relationships.
Who needs them?
Well,
Not
it
me.
depends on the right one.
Sure. Friendships, those are the good
Yeah.
relationships
Yeah.
most of the time. You'd hope.
Well, I
But
think people are just complicated.
definitely, definitely. I feel like we have so much conflict inside of ourselves that you don't just go up to people and tell them like, I feel this way, but I also feel this way. So like the battle, I guess, inside my head is always just like, I have all this great stuff going for me, but there's also this other situation that's not quite the happiest situation that makes me sad sometimes. And it's just dealing with that in my own way, which I guess is crying in a park.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't know. I used to be pretty bad at talking about how I felt. And I think over time I've gotten better at it. It's like a
Mm,
conscious thing to be like, oh no, this is how I'm feeling. It's okay to express that.
yeah,
And also it's healthy because it's like I need to figure out if what I'm feeling is like
real.
real or not, or if I'm living in
I feel that
reality,
that's
or
such a
like,
weird thing,
yeah,
isn't it? I feel like after COVID, especially, I feel like before COVID, all of my friendships to a point where kind of, I want to say surface level, but I feel like once we all went through COVID, now if I hear someone do a deep sigh, I'm like, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. Let's
yeah,
just talk about it. And I've noticed like so many people just want to like talk to someone that wants to listen, who kind of can relate or understand to a point. You might not have all the answers, but I love when someone's just like, just let it out, just tell me what's wrong. And I feel like that's how I've made like my closest friendships, is just by being honest, not having to be okay all the time, because we're not okay all the time. And that's okay.
yeah,
But yeah, I feel like the more you can talk to someone about how you're really feeling and what you're really going through, that's, yeah, you're going to be close to those people hopefully for like a long time. Those
yeah,
are
and
my favorite
hopefully,
friendships.
hopefully they can give you some perspective
Yeah. And hopefully
on,
they don't use it against you.
yeah. Well, that's where
But
you pick your and choose your friends wisely. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, ironic that we're broadcasting this to the world and talking about it, but typically you wouldn't broadcast like your inner darkest fears and
My problem is I have no filter and I want to talk about it. I'm just like, let me tell you what's wrong with me. And then see if you still want to be my friend.
well
See if you
you
still want to listen to my music.
I do you know the weird thing? I think not only will they still want to listen, I think they will appreciate more
I
what
hope
you're
so.
singing about. Well,
I don't know how to turn this off, so I hope so.
I think so. I think the the more I've done this and the more that I speak to people, it is the genuine people who significantly benefit from talking to me more than the people who are like coming with a very specific lane of
Yeah,
what they want to get across. And I think
right.
there's something to that of, as you said, genuine authenticity. That's what people want. People want, they don't want a brand, another
Yeah,
brand. They want a person who just happens to make music they like.
yeah. I mean, I think that's why I connect to certain artists more than others, like the ones whose real life, well, real in quotations, life I get to see is who I kind of gravitate more towards. I'm like, if you're singing a song, I kind of want to know like what you're talking about and what the situation was to a point. You don't have to tell me everything, but I want to like connect. Everyone just wants to connect, I think. And I think regardless of whether we're trying to or not, I think just like sharing the traumas that we all kind of have in the same way, I guess. I feel like I've realized a lot of the time from TikTok comment sections is that we're all living the same life. So yeah, it's nice when someone else kind of has been through a similar experience and you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, thank God I'm not alone. Like, sometimes you do feel alone. It's not a
Yeah.
good feeling.
No, no. And you feel stupid as well. Like
Yeah, that's a
that's
good way to
that's
put
the
it.
weird thing of like you feel dumb. Like you're like, oh, why I'm just being dumb. Like, why am I feeling this way over this thing? And then
Yeah,
you speak to someone and you realize, and they're like, no, you that's exactly how you should be feeling about the
yeah,
thing you went through. And it's actually weird if you didn't feel that way. And then you're
yeah.
like, oh, oh, I
I,
can feel this way.
I feel like a lot of times I'm just like, why am I so sad over this situation? Like, this is my fault that I'm sad. Like, I'll blame myself. But then when I talk to someone else about the situation and they've been through something similar, as soon as someone tells me like it's not your fault, like I'll just cry my eyes out. I'm like, okay, I needed to hear that. Like, thank you. Because yeah, especially if you don't talk to people, I used to keep a lot of stuff to myself and like not even talk to like my family or my sister about a lot of stuff, so it would just build up and I'd be like, oh my God, like I'm an idiot. Like I'm letting this situation affect me. But at the end of the day, like whatever the situation was, it's naturally going to affect whoever is dealing with that situation. So just to hear someone else kind of just validate the way you're feeling is really nice. And you can then move forward with trying to feel a different kind of way.
Well, you are a human after all.
I
So
know.
yeah, I
I'm just
know.
kidding.
I know. Well, that's
Who knew?
geez, this podcast would take a weird turn if you're like, I'm actually a
It's
lizard
AI.
person.
I'm one of those AI Instagram influencers, actually. So
I would be
glad
like,
someone finally said it.
damn, this is good. This is a really good copy of humans. Like I didn't know
You're
we had this
actually talking
tech.
to a 45-year-old man. So
Oh, well,
he's
now
going
I
through
feel very
it.
different. I feel betrayed.
Sorry, someone had to tell you. If not me, who?
Yeah. Well, now I don't know who you really are.
My name's Jeff. No, but yeah,
Um,
no.
yeah. I don't know where we've gone now. But
The depths of the internet is where we've
yeah,
gone.
the depths of the internet. But I
Triple
was
depths.
reading that because you have a twin, right?
I do, yeah.
And your twin is also in like, I was reading she's in the film industry.
She
If I,
is
yeah,
in the film
so
industry and she's crushing it. I'm
that's
really excited
awesome.
for her
So
and everyone that gets to work
creativity,
with her. Yeah.
creativity must be in the family.
It is. I feel like I'm not too close with my extended family, but on both sides, there's like cousins that have been just doing what they're doing. A lot of cousins on my dad's side are a lot older than me, but then on my mum's side, they're all about the same age. And one of my cousins, Billy, is a rapper. I have a cousin, Kiana, who was in a band called Fatty Coo. She used to like bounce around with Miguel and stuff back in there old MTV days, like early 2000s. But then at the same time, like my mum would always be singing in the kitchen and she has a beautiful voice, but she also has 4 kids that she had to raise. So music wasn't really in her path at a certain point. But then at the same time, like my dad loves listening to music. He didn't really like tell me how to use any of the equipment at the time, so I never used it, but he used to buy me so much music equipment just to like try to encourage me. But at the time, I'm 8 years old with an interface. I don't know what I'm doing. I just want to play The Sims and have fun. But yeah, there's always been music in my family, so I'm glad I kind of got that gene. But
Yeah.
also just creativity as well. Like me and my sister used to write scripts when we were like 10 and we would record ourselves on a VHS camera, just like making our little screenplays come to life, or we would be recording covers in her bedroom to the behest of the rest of the family. They were not good covers. Not a lot of people can sing the Veronicas, and we were some of those people.
Do you what you
But
guys couldn't at 8 years old sing the
I
Veronicas
didn't really
perfectly?
have the range. Shocking. I know. But
Well,
I would
if it
like
makes
sneak
you,
into the bathroom at 2 o'clock in the morning, thinking no one could hear me because everyone's sleeping. And I would wake everybody up to me singing in the bathroom at 2 o'clock in the morning. So,
Well, if it makes you feel better, I went through a phase where I would just beatbox around the house and irritate the hell out of my family. And
I
not
mean, who
beatbox
doesn't?
well. Let me be clear. Like not well at all. And they would be like, Aaron, we could hear you in the shower trying to beatbox. Can you just like do it in your own time without
Right.
everyone having to
Outside.
hear it? Yeah, outside without driving everyone insane.
My little brother, he was playing drums in high school, so you'd always just like hear him tap in. And I felt bad, like I didn't encourage him more because I would just be like, shut up. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. But I wonder what a little encouragement would have done for him. Maybe he
Does he
could be in my
still
band right now.
does he still play the drums?
He doesn't. I don't think so. He like was playing saxophone, trombone, the drums, but yeah, again, it's just there wasn't a lot of like encouragement when we were growing up. It was more like get a real job. And then we all started working in food service, so I guess that's a real job.
Yeah. I think every parent says that. Get a real job.
Mm.
I
I
think
feel like they didn't, I mean, they didn't have TikTok and stuff. Like, I didn't even know I could do it until I was like in my 20s and seeing other people saying that they did it to a certain degree. Like, I didn't know that until then either. So I just don't think they had the foresight to know what was going to happen in the industry and how independent artists were going to become all the rage and all the avenues that we have to kind of try to build our own success now. They didn't have that. So I get it. But it would have been nice just for someone to be like, go for it.
I think
But
they were also worried about the stereotypical failed artist.
true. I
They
mean, there's
weren't
still
looking.
time.
Hopefully you
Never
don't
know.
get to that point where I'm like, all right, you're back on the show and you're like, Aaron, I'm a stereotypical failed artist now. And I'm living every parent's worst nightmare. That would not, but I think that's where it comes from. That I definitely see that in my family of like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't want you to be a struggling artist because the life of a struggling artist is not good. Like it's
Yeah.
not pleasant. It's difficult and it's hard and it ages you and it's difficult to sustain, you know, relationships. It's difficult to if you have a family, that puts a lot of pressure on you. So that's where it all came from. It was like, yeah, go to uni, get a degree, go get a good job that earns you lots of money, and then you
Yeah.
can take care of your family. And that's
My
like the mindset.
Right. My dad was always pushing me to get into IT. He's like, it's stable, like it's gonna be okay. But I just like I went to college for so many things. Like maybe this is what I want to do, or maybe this is what I should do. Like I think I was always just trying to find happiness in something, and I just was not finding it. So I think I just had to make the decision for myself instead of my parents eventually. Like, am I gonna be stable or am I gonna be happy? And I chose to be happy to the best of my ability. I just had to choose that for myself. So no one's going to give it to you. You have to choose it. But it's
Yeah.
definitely a hard road. I feel like that struggling artist, all those dot points you mentioned, I feel like a lot of that is like the lack of socializing, which I'm getting better at now, especially now this album's about to come out. And yeah, just all the sacrifices you kind of have to make. Like I don't have a stable income. I don't have like a steady job. I feel like I'm always hustling, like trying to find the next thing that's going to keep me afloat. So it's definitely still a struggle, but I feel like, yeah, I'm happy. You could say I'm happy. The journey is what makes me happy. I think it makes me excited for life, which is what I needed. I needed to be excited by life again. So yeah,
Yeah.
now I'm gonna cry.
Well, you're more than welcome to cry. There's no rules on this show. But yeah, I think that's really nice to be able to say about
Yeah. Took
what
me a
you've
long time
chosen.
to be able to say that, but yeah, I think I figured out that I just needed to live my life to the best of my ability because at the end of the day, time's going to keep moving and I could sit there and be, yeah, unhappy, or I could try to do something different. And as long as I'm trying, I think that's kind of what made me happy in the end. But it's definitely a journey. I don't think happiness is a point that you get to and you're like, oh, here it is. Like, this is it. Because it's, yeah, ebbs and flows. And when I'm sad, I know something good is going to be coming around the corner. And when something's good around the corner, I just know like enjoy it while it's here because it might not last, but there will be other things that make you happy
Yeah.
eventually. Who
I
knows
kind
when,
of,
but
in a weird way, I think happy is not the right way to describe it. For me personally, when
mm,
I think about it, I'm like, I think peacefulness and content
yeah,
is like,
content's a good word.
is what, because happiness is like fleeting to me. And
Yeah,
like, same as sadness, like they're two sides of the same coin where like I will feel sad, but it's fleeting. And I will feel happy, but that's also fleeting. And what
mm,
I want to return to is a range of peacefulness and contentedness. And that's what I'm realizing is much more like as I go through life, if I'm in a place of peace, then that is as close to happiness at a constant level that you can reach.
yeah,
And and so that's kind of like where I'm trying to find the journey of like, and then I will be, because I'm at peace and content, then the experience of happiness I will be happy with. And the experience of sadness I will also be okay with. And the
true.
experience of frustration and all of those things will all be just experiences. But then my return will be to like a place of like just emotional stability and like
Yeah,
safety. And so that's what I'm realizing more and more of like, don't chase the high, chase the stability and chase the safety. And that will allow you to experience everything that you experience in a better way, in a way that
true.
doesn't throw everything else off.
I think for me, like doing music, I never feel safe. I'm
Yeah.
always like the ball could drop at any second. But I think being content for me is just knowing that I'm trying to do something, that I'm moving myself forward in whatever way that is or is accessible to me at the time. Um, I I feel like there's always something. I always want something new. Like if I get success on whatever level, I always want more. So the contentness doesn't come from like reaching here. It comes from just like trying to reach here. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I could be doing nothing. So I think doing something is content for me.
Yeah.
The bar is low.
Well, I think striving is a good
Mm,
place to be. Can like I don't know. I think it makes more sense to be content with a state of being than with
yeah,
a achievement.
right.
Because like every achievement I've ever gotten in my life, I'm always like sick. Okay, now
Yeah,
what? Like I
exactly.
feel good, but then it's gone, and I'm like, oh no, I haven't dealt with the real challenges that persist, which
Mm,
is me. That's really what it is at the end of the day. Is like,
right.
that's what we're all kind of dealing with. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think everyone's on their own journey with their own version of that.
I feel like being content can also be just being accepting of who you are as a person, because we all have like flaws. I'm not perfect, obviously. There's a lot of things that I would change about myself if I had a magic wand. But I think, yeah, just accepting who I am and how my brain works and how I feel on the inside is also a level of contentment where, yeah, I don't need to be this person and I don't need to be that person. Like I can just be myself and that's enough for me. So I don't know. Yeah.
Well, my hope is that you continue to find that within yourself. Like I think
Mm,
it's a it's a beautiful thing to strive for, which is like you wake up and you're like, I'm me and I'm happy with that. And I'm content and I'm like, oh, I'm just like, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I exist and I'm glad I get to do what I do. And I think,
exactly. I feel like I used to always be like, I should be doing what this person's doing. I should be doing my hair like this other person. And I think I just got to a point. I think I saw this in like an Instagram quote or something where it was like, you are you, they are them, you'll never be them, they'll never be you. So you just have to be yourself. So I guess, try to be the best version of myself, whatever that is.
yeah.
Hopefully it's this.
And no, I think it is. And to be fair, your impersonation of someone else is never going to be as good as your representation of yourself.
exactly. As you can hear in my earlier music.
Yeah. But
So
I think that's just like, that's part of
growth.
it.
Yeah.
That's part of it. Like, yeah. I think when I started podcasting, I probably would have internalized any podcast that I was listening to and be like, I want to be exactly like that. And so I'm going to speak in that cadence. I'm going to ask questions like that. It doesn't work.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
also just like you put so much energy into pretending to be someone else that you don't save enough energy to actually be yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I feel.
Yeah. No, it definitely makes sense. Everything you've said has made sense. So um,
Thanks. I'm really
when
smart.
you listen back when it comes out, then you'll be like, I'll actually double check to verify.
Yeah, I gotta stop
Aaron.
doubting
Yeah.
myself. Believe.
Believe. Yeah. Well, hey, honestly, you don't do 200 plus episodes without some sort of nonsensical talk coming out of my mouth at some point. So,
I just edit
um,
that out.
no, I keep it. I just keep it. I
Oh,
don't even edit the nonsensical parts.
that's fair.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know. I think having weird parts of conversations and awkwardness, that's true. It's real. That's how like even the best people I know, sometimes we have an awkward moment and you're like, I've known you for 15 years and how do we still have random awkwardness every now and again? It's like I think that just is part of normal interaction. So I keep
I
all
think I'm
that.
just an awkward person in general as well, but I don't know. I love being awkward.
You're not that awkward.
It just means you know how to read a room. Maybe sometimes you don't. That's all
Yeah.
right as well.
Well,
But
yeah, I don't think you're that awkward. Like I haven't felt that at all.
take it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I've always had like a bit of social anxiety, where I would like work something up in my head. I'm like, this is what I'm gonna say, like kind of just what we were talking about. Like this is how the conversation's gonna go, and I'll think about it over and over again to make sure like there's no empty silence. And even in real life, like conversations, I'm like, awkward silence used to make me feel really awkward, and now I'm just like, well, this is it. I'm just gonna accept it. It's okay. Think of something else to say.
Did you do that before this interview?
I was definitely like, oh, what kind of questions is he gonna ask? Like, what if he asked me like what kind of music I grew up on and who do I say? Like, it's always people have asked me that in interviews before, like, well, what did you grow up on? And I'm like, feel like I have to say like these certain people because that's what my mom listened to and what my dad listened to. But then the interview would end and I'm like, I actually also listened to this person and that had an impact on me. And then this person had an impact on me, but I didn't say that because I was too busy like following the lines that I had in my head that I kind of tried to prepare for to not make it awkward. But yeah, at the same time, I think being awkward is the most real that you can be. So yeah, I always go back and I'm just like, oh, I wish I said that instead.
Well, I did reach out to interview you, not the version of you that you planned.
Oh, good.
So yeah. So and to be fair, I avoid those questions as much as possible because I know that you've answered them before and I know that you probably have a pre-planned answer for all the questions that
Love
you've answered
it.
before. But like I know that already. That's the whole point is like why wouldn't you have
Yeah,
if you've been asked a question 10 times, you will have an answer to that question already. Like
right.
it's locked and loaded and now you're just like let me just pull that out. Okay, done, next and I move on and you just like give it. So, yeah. I think and I also think those questions are easy to ask. Um,
Yeah.
like they're not a stretch for anyone to be like, tell me about the music you listened to when you grew up, or tell me about your influences, or tell me about it's like how you came up with your artist name. All that kind of stuff to me is like very corny. So yeah, I will avoid it as much as I can.
I appreciate it.
You say that, and then we got into deep
Once we get
fears
canceled.
and anxiety and genuine
Trauma.
worries and trauma. So it's like you pick which lane, but yeah, I appreciate your authenticity and your openness because it's
Thanks.
not easy to do it at the best of times, let alone with a stranger talking to you through a camera on the other side of the
Yeah.
world.
So it's weird because I keep forgetting that this is like a live podcast. So I feel like I'm like watching someone else on a podcast and I'm like, oh, this is it's me. Like this is real time.
Well, the good news is this isn't live. So,
Oh.
yeah, people, this is not streaming right now to thousands of people. This will very much be like just between us for now, and then eventually it
For
will be
now.
for now. Well, it will come out at some point.
I'll bide my
Hopefully,
time.
yeah. We'll enjoy the peacefulness without it, and then when it comes out, it's out there in the ether. But yeah, I think you've represented yourself very well. So I really wouldn't worry that much.
No, thanks. I'll take it.
Well, I only have one more question for you before we wrap up. And as I love that I went into a spiel of questions that are pre-planned, and this actually is a pre-planned question. It is the only question that I plan on the show. It's probably the hardest question I'm going to ask you, so prepare. But if you had to recommend one album that everyone should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, can be any genre of music, cannot be your own music, what would it be?
That's a good question. I feel like, and this is going to be a bit of a weird answer. I went to Palm Springs once and I had a really bad mushroom trip. And the only thing that got me through it was the Black is King album by Beyonce. And I feel like I know she was kind of going through the story of like the Lion King, and that's what the album was about. But if you actually listen to the words, like there's this one song called Keys to the Kingdom where she's talking about like only you can do it for yourself, like you are the keys to your kingdom. Um, just songs like that are on the album, you obviously just kind of relate to a little more beyond surface level of like a Disney movie. And that just, besides getting me through that mushroom trip, I feel like I had a whole experience with that album. And just that kind of style of music as well, I think kind of brought me into the realm of like, oh, I can do different styles and I can switch things up and I can talk about like the fears and the traumas I have and how I'm moving forward and figuring out life for myself. And yeah, it kind of just made me look inwards and be like, you know what? I got this. So, and it saved me from the mushroom trip. So, yeah, I think Black is King by Beyonce is like one of my favorite albums.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Beyonce can add it to her resume list of
I
like,
know.
has saved person from mushroom trip.
Yeah, literally. I'm sure she's done that for a few of us now, but no, I really love that. There is, I mean, yeah, there's quite a few albums that I feel like have touched me throughout my life. The first album I ever bought was Avril Lavigne's debut album. I think that was like 2000 and something. But that album was just like, oh my God, this is a girl like heading a band. I mean, obviously we have like No
Yeah.
Doubt and stuff. There's plenty of people have done that before. But she was just like, I don't know, something about that album. It's the first one I made my mom go out and buy for me. Um, and yeah, that was like
Is
the
that the
album of my
album
childhood.
with Skater Boy on it?
The Skater Boy,
That's the
you
one.
Complicated,
Yeah.
so many great songs. I would like, I think that's the first time I like cried to an album, and I think I was
Wow.
11. And I was like, oh my God, I relate to this. It is a damn cold night. But yeah, there's like, yeah, quite a few albums that have touched me. I just, yeah, Black is King really got me through a hard time.
Love
In
that.
2020, I think that was 2020. But
Yeah. Look, I actually haven't had many Beyonce recommendations on this show, so you
interesting.
would be amongst the few. But yeah, shout out to Beyonce.
Yeah.
She gets some love. But
She really put the culture like back in my heart. And I was like, yeah, we're Black and we're proud. Like, not that I wasn't thinking that before, but that was a whole cultural experience for me, especially being Australian and just, but also half American at the same time. And like that just, I had just such a connection with that. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Let me ask you: is your American accent good?
I think so. For me, it sounds like super fake. I also feel like I have such a hybrid accent already that it's like Australians. I'll meet Australians in LA and they'll be like, where are you from? And I'm just like, what do you mean? I'm from Adelaide. But then you hear them talk, like I'm hearing you talk now. That's a full-on Australian accent. But I think mine kind of just like, I got a bit lazy when I moved
Mm,
here. I'm like, I don't end words the same. Sometimes I'll throw an R in there. It's just easier. And I don't want to
well,
repeat myself a lot.
I got to say, most people can't pick I'm Australian. at the
That
beginning.
you're Australian?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do they think you are?
I don't know. I think what they imagine Australians to be is Crocodile Dundee and
Steve-O
Steve
and as
Owen.
well,
And
yeah.
so like when I open my mouth, it's it doesn't sound anything like them.
Mm,
Um and
just a
like
regular accent.
just a regular accent, and growing up in like more like Melbourne City,
Mm,
like it's not as strong as like Adelaide or
yeah.
other places. So um
I
but
find that
yeah.
a lot of people think I'm British or I get South African a lot. I think that's because I'm brown. I don't know.
You
But
do
I also
have
get
twang of
Irish a
British, I
lot.
gotta say. You
You
do have
reckon?
like there are
I think that
some
might be the
words.
Adelaide in me. I don't know. But
Yeah. I
yeah, it's
think
always just like trying to prove that I'm Australian. I'm like, do you need my birth certificate? Like to other Australians though.
yeah. Yeah.
And I also think people don't realize that Australia is a lot like America, where there's different accents everywhere, and some of them are stronger, like way stronger, and some of them aren't really. And there's people from different places that have their own kind of Australian accents as well. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, at
It's gonna
least you can
educate
play
America.
anything. You can like play, you can be like, oh, I am British, or I am
Oh yeah.
Australian, or I am American, or I am South African. But just
I'd
that's
love to be
see,
South African. So cool. Just
yeah, you just have to work on that accent, and then
have to
you can pull
believe.
it out. Yeah.
If Leonardo DiCaprio can do it, I think I could do it.
Yeah, and his
He
accent
is
was
like one of the
great.
greatest actors of all time, and I'm just like making my little songs, but I feel like it's about even.
But I tell you what, you are working on vocal manipulation. Like you're
Yeah,
working on singing, so that should be within the realm of your like skill set. So I think you could
definitely
definitely do it.
sounds.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so like I sing in an American accent on some songs, and it's like not even something I think about. But then I think the songs that like mean a bit more, I'm like it's more Australian. So it's like it's always different. I'm like, which one's real now? I don't know which one's real. Am I American? But I'm also like half half. So it's just yeah, it just is what it is, I guess.
Well, on behalf of Australia, we'll always take you as one of our own. So we'll always so yeah,
Appreciate
if
it.
the Americans aren't, we will. I feel like that's part of the Aussie move is like half, you're us, quarter,
I
you're
mean,
us too.
it's so funny because I feel like I moved to America to gain acceptance of Australia. Because, yeah, again, I didn't see myself represented. So I was like, well, okay, I'm just going to go to America. And once I make it there, like Australia will have to claim me. And now I feel like I'm seeing that shift of like, they see the numbers like that I've gotten from America or whatever. And now they're like, oh, how do we not know who she was before? And I'm like, because I didn't try in Australia. I was yeah, I don't know. I kind of like skipped the line, I feel a little, but hey, I'll take
Yeah.
it.
If it works, it works. But
Yeah.
do you know what I am looking forward to? I'm looking forward to your album. Moondust is coming out in it's June now, so it'll
Yeah.
probably
June
be
21st.
June 21st. It'll probably be out now. So for anyone who is listening to this, go listen to it now. It will be out now. It'll be phenomenal. Obviously, you've got lots of singles that came out recently as well that we said at the top of the show. Australian Statistic, most recent one. You know, shout out to a few Aussies, Silly and Sin
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Is there anything you wanted to shout out? Anything you wanted to plug before we wrap it up?
I mean, I don't know if this will be out by then, but I'm playing my first headline show in Los Angeles at the Peppermint Club on June 20th. It's going to be my first time with like a full band, like dancers, bunch of like special guests as well. A lot of people that appear on the album who there's this one guy, he's going to be big. This guy's going to be big. I'm excited. So you'll hear him on the album as well. But yeah, he's on a song called Into the Water. You guys will have to go listen to it when you listen to the album, June 21st. And that's my plug.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank
It
you
was
for having
genuinely a
me.
pleasure. And yeah, we'll have to do this again soon.
I know, I feel like we're friends now. We
Well,
trauma
you can
bonded.
okay, you can't take that back now.
Oh, damn. No, I'm just kidding. You're gonna have to come up to me in a coffee shop and cry about how
And
you
cry.
relate to my music
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna accost you in a Los Angeles coffee shop and be like,
Love that.
Takara, you
It's
saved
me.
me. Like, listen to my problems.
Mm. So
Yeah.
I'm chilling. I love it. I did invite that, so it's my own fault.
You did. And it's recorded. This is very rarely do you have it record
I
it and be
know.
like, yeah.
Put this on the internet. But yeah. No, thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time to get to know me and taking an interest in my music as well. It means a lot.
My
So.
pleasure.